Hey, happy Wednesday, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Mastermind Academy. Tonight is part 2 of our cloud introduction to the cloud with AWS. Tonight we're going to be talking about a couple things. We're going to be talking about storage and we're going to be talking about databases tonight. But as usual, if you're new to the channel, definitely shout that out in the chat. You know, I like to know people's names come across. So definitely shout that out if this is your first time on the stream. A few announcements. I was able to send out, I didn't get to send it out until today, the link to the Google Classroom. So if you're a subscriber, you should have got that. There was an issue if you immediately got the email and you tried to log in, it probably didn't let you do that because there was a weird domain setting that I had to change to allow anyone to be able to get into there. You should be able to try it again if you did not get in there. I realized I added, when I was testing to see when people were telling me it wasn't working, I went to test an outside account and it looks like I still have to release all the classes. I moved them all in there, but it looks like I still have to release them, but still getting the hang of it. But they are all in there, so hopefully you got access. Good, you should see those things pop up tonight. If you don't have access, definitely reach out to me. I haven't got to everyone's message, but the email went out, so hopefully that's resolved most of everyone's problems. Second thing was that a lot of people have messaged me and weren't aware that the subscription is a monthly thing. You do not have to subscribe monthly. A single subscription gets you access to that Google Classroom. But if you would like to support, you can subscribe monthly, especially if you have Amazon Prime. You have to just manually resubscribe. If you click the subscribe button, it'll let you know that you have a new month and a new free subscription that you can use. But as usual, it's 8:02. We'll give people till about 8:05 to kind of hop on and get ready. Again, tonight we're going to be going over some database stuff, some storage stuff. And I said tonight wasn't going to be slide intensive, but it is going to be relatively slide intensive. As I was going through what I wanted to do tonight, these topics need they have a lot of caveats and they need a little bit of extra information. So we will have a fair amount of slides tonight, but we will get hands-on. We will do a bunch of hands-on stuff, so we'll get to actually use a lot of the services. But let's go ahead and pull this up and make sure we're ready to go. But how's everyone doing tonight? Today was every other Wednesday I usually have to travel. I work in Baltimore, but I usually have to travel down to DC. So the days are a little bit long. Wake up pretty early, so I'm a little bit tired right now. So just trying to wake up a little bit, trying to get a little bit energized. But I would love to know how everyone else's day went while we're waiting for everyone to kind of get on and get settled. Let's see what we got here. Also, people have asked me about where I get my backgrounds from. So currently, I have this pretty cool Deadpool background. I am into, I'm into all the superhero stuff, but I get all my stuff from a guy named Justin Maller. I think I went there on the first stream, but I'll post it in the chat. Justin Maller. I just Google it.com and go to wallpapers. He does a lot of cool wallpaper art. Has all kinds of people in here, all kinds of different designs. But if you want to steal my background, you can go ahead and steal it from there. Favorite podcast? What was your favorite podcast? I definitely need some new podcasts. I'm getting a little tired of the ones that I've been listening to. I need some new podcast blood. Maybe I can go back and listen to all of the old episodes of your favorite one. But I am sorry to hear that. I feel like it's kind of like when a Netflix show dies, or like when you've been watching it for a while and they don't renew it. It really hurts. A Coda Radio from the Jupiter Broadcast team. Oh, okay. So Jupiter Broadcast, I think I know them. I think those are the people who do like the Hack 5 stuff and they do a lot of Linux stuff. I think on YouTube. But what was up, Malcolm? Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Joe Budden podcast will always be good. I'm looking for I'll never stop listening to that, I don't think. But yeah, I listen to someone got me into some weird ones. I'm not into tabletop games like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff at all. But I was in the car with someone listening to some brothers play. It's called Adventure Zone, and they were playing Dungeons and Dragons, and it was just a funny show. Like I don't really listen to it for the Dungeons and Dragons. I listen to it for the jokes. That's been pretty cool. It's been interesting. It's way different from all the other podcasts I listen to. I listen to a lot of motivational stuff. I listen to a fair amount of tech stuff as well. Figure out what's going on in the world. And I also listen to stuff like the Joe Budden podcast. So there could be anything on there. But yeah, I am familiar with Elastic Beanstalk and connected to an RDS instance. That isn't in the same container. Yes. RDS will never be in the same. Well, it could be. Yes, I have done that before. We can talk about that a little bit when we ask that question again when we get to the RDS section tonight. Okay. Oh, Jupiter Broadcasting. I think I know I've seen some stuff from them. I think they also do some System 76 stuff. I've talked about the Linux laptop maker System 76 on here before. I actually use their laptops, but I think that's where I've seen Jupiter Broadcasting. I think they do some reviews for them. Oh yeah, so I've been meaning to check out my brother and me, because I find those guys hilarious. Like I go for, so when like I told you guys in the first class that I'm in the motorsports. So like when I'm really tired or stressed out, like I like to go for a drive, and like I love to listen to their podcasts while I'm driving, because it's just, I don't know, just kind of ridiculousness. I don't really have to think hard about it, so it's pretty cool. But yeah, 807, we can go ahead and hop into it. So tonight, Intro to the Cloud Part 2. Tonight's topic, cumulonimbus. So that's a nerd joke, but it seems like we're really getting a mastery of the nerd jokes. You can't master the mind until you master the nerd joke. So there'll be a new one every single stream, so take that one with you. If you don't know what cumulonimbus is, it is a type of cloud. Not one that you can deploy things on, but look it up. You'll learn something new about geology and the world and how we exist. So check that out. But the first thing we're going to start with tonight is storage. We're going to talk about a lot of storage concepts, and Amazon gives us a lot of options for storage. When we talk about storage, we talked about those resources when we started the intro to the cloud, and the storage that we're talking about is the permanent kind, the non-ephemeral kind, the kind that doesn't go away easily, that sticks around for as long as you want it to. And these are all hard drive based. They may be solid state drives, but they're hard drive based. So this is the resource that you can tie this to. And the first one, and probably the biggest, most important one we're going to talk about, is S3. S3 stands for Simple Storage Service. This is one of Amazon's earlier services, one of their first services, and this is probably one of the most heavily used services in the world. Very simple to use, very easy to use. A lot of functionality here, especially for kind of the way today's world works. And I guarantee you've interacted with it on a daily basis and not have known it. So what is S3? S3 is basically, at its core, it is a storage solution that is, any amount of data, anytime. You can retrieve any amount of data anytime from anywhere in the world. So as long as you have a networked internet connection, you can access this data. It's massively scalable, so you don't need to worry about building out resources and redundancy, etc., to be able to retrieve this data. So if you put a file in there that you want the world to access and a million people come grab it at once, you don't need to really worry about what you need to do to make sure everyone can get that data all at once without servers crashing. It's massively scalable, and it has 11 nines of durability. You'll hear that a lot if you're studying Amazon. They say 11 nines, and that is just 11. It's actually 11 nines, so 99.9999999% durability. This means this just means that your data is safe. They do a lot of replication here, but your data, it is extremely, extremely, extremely unlikely that you will lose your data. It's very safe. Your data is very durable. There is a huge difference between durability, reliability, and what's the last one? Resiliency. I think there are differences between those that we will talk about later, but it is 11 nines of durability, and that's very important to remember. So S3, another thing about S3 is it is object storage and not block storage. So tonight, if you look below the video, you'll see that I've updated the stream specific commands. So there should be one right at the top, I believe, for storage types. So that's a resource for you to read through on object storage versus block storage. Block storage is traditionally how the hard drives that you know of on your computer save data. They split them up into blocks and store them into blocks around the disk, around the magnetic disks. Object storage does not handle that storage in the same way. And because of that, it is not suited for things like operating systems. So although S3 is storage, don't think about it like a hard drive. Think about it more like a USB stick. And you can store entire objects on there, along with their metadata. That metadata is just information kind of about the object and describing the object. But it is important to know that it is object storage and not block storage. So different from a traditional hard drive. These storage volumes are called buckets. You'll hear a lot of people talk about S3 buckets. So that's what they call them. So you can just visually see that a bucket is a place where you store items, where you store objects. So a bucket is a place where you can just take objects and you can stick them in there. And then, like we said before, you can retrieve them anytime from anywhere that has a networked internet connection. So you can use it mostly for that. But because of the way S3 buckets work, you can also actually host websites on them. So static websites. So there are websites that do a bunch of different things and do a lot of processing. If your site is mostly informational and has a lot of static, is mostly static, you can host it off of here. There are ways to get more dynamic sites hosted through S3, with the way you architecture your applications. There's I think I've told you all about A Cloud Guru before, the site that does cloud training. Their entire site, I think they wrote a white paper on it, is completely created through serverless technologies in Amazon, S3 being a big part of that, and Lambdas, etc. But you can host websites out of S3 for basically no money. So that's one of the biggest things about S3 is that it is very, very cheap. We're talking about you can put a lot of data in there and pay pennies per month. You do pay for two things in S3 though. You pay for the storage that it takes up, and you also pay for data transfer to and from the bucket. But again, it is extremely, extremely cheap. There's almost no chance you'll notice. It's going to be pennies per month, if that. It might be 2 or 3 cents per month because it's very cheap. Storage has become very cheap on the internet. So we're gonna do some hands-on stuff with S3 buckets later. But again, just think about them as exactly the picture you see here on the right. It's a bucket that you can store objects into, and again, not good for things like you can't install an operating system on it. You can't really mount it as like a drive to a server. Like, it doesn't really work that way. There are people who have created tools to allow you to mimic that, but it's not that. It's not intended to be used as that, and we'll get it and check those out real time. And then let's talk about S3 storage classes. So there are different classes of storage for S3, and this is very important to know. By default, you get the standard class. So standard is exactly all the things we talked about. You throw files into the bucket, you can grab them and access them whenever you want. But then we've got some other options here that help you be able to architect out infrastructure for cost savings and for efficiency's sake. So we'll do standard intelligent tiering last, but we have standard, and then we have standard IA, which stands for infrequent access. So what infrequent access is it's a storage class basically inside of S3 where you say, hey, I have a bunch of files that I need around and available, but I don't access them often. And because I don't access them often, I'd like to save some money on their storage, but I'm willing to pay a little bit when I do access them. I'm willing to pay a little bit of a premium when I do need to access those files if need be. But I don't access these files often. So what you get is you get cheaper storage. So it's even cheaper than the standard S3 to be able to host those files or keep those files around and available. And then you may have to pay a little bit to be able to access those files when you need to access them. So if you're touching these files once every 6 months, once a year, something like that, this may be the thing for you. Then we've got Glacier. So Glacier is for archival. So if you have files, there's a lot of times, organizations may need to keep data around for a long time for security reasons, for legal reasons. They may need to keep documents and things around for 7-10 years, but no one ever accesses these files. Or you could have backups and copies of things. And Glacier allows you to very, very cheaply be able to get that data. Get that data archived and keep it backed up and accessible. So you take all the files that go into Glacier, and again, they're supposed to be files that you don't access basically at all, because you do have to pay an even bigger premium when you do access those files. So again, the storage is actually even cheaper, but it does cost you. It costs a lot. In comparison, it doesn't cost a lot, but it does cost to retrieve those files when you do need to retrieve them. And there is a time concern. So it's not immediately accessible whenever you want to grab it, just like the standard tier. When you're ready to grab it, you may have to wait hours to be able to grab that data, and you'll have to pay for it, which is pretty interesting. So Glacier is probably backed by tape storage. It is not, like all of S3 is object store. It's probably backed by some type of tape storage. All of this is backed by some type of block storage, has to be. But Glacier is equivalent to tape storage. You can think about it that way, absolutely. So that's what you would use Glacier for, to archive files for very cheaply. So like tape storage. Sorry, my glasses are bothering me a little bit. But yeah, and then we have Glacier Deep Archive, which is relatively new. And it's just a whole new layer of Glacier. It is for stuff that, really doesn't need to be touched. But again, it's just all the tiers basically make it cheaper for you to store your data and more expensive for you to access that data, and increase the amount of time it takes to access that data. So I think Glacier Deep Archive, and we'll check it out when we hop in a second. I think that could be, hours and days to be able to get your stuff out of there if need be. And I think it's quite a premium to grab your stuff out of there. So there actually are a few other storage classes now. These are the main ones. I think there's another standard IA for single zones, so they won't put it in all the availability zones, so it's a little less durable, but it's also cheaper. So it's very interesting how you can cost optimize your storage using these different options. And then standard intelligent tiering is actually a tier where Amazon will do their best. They'll apply some machine learning and do their best to place your objects into the right storage class. So if there's a bunch of files you're never touching, they might throw them into Glacier, or they might throw them into IA for a little while and then drop them into Glacier because you never touched them. But standard intelligent tiering allows Amazon to do its best to classify your objects in the best way that it can. There are also, I did not put a slide in here for this. It is important to know that what standard intelligent tiering does, you can do manually through something called life cycle policies. So you can actually set up these policies that say, hey, if no one accesses this file for 2 months, for 60 days, move this storage class down to IA. And if no one accesses it for this amount of time, we can drop it down to Glacier. And you can set up these rules manually to be able to determine what files go into which storage class, to be able to optimize your money savings and optimize which solution is best for you. So that's in its essence, that's what S3 is. Again, object store. It's a bucket that just holds your objects, that holds your data, and you don't think about it like a normal hard drive. You cannot install an operating system on it. You can't really attach it to a computer like that either. It is just a place to store your files, kind of similar to a USB stick. There are limitations to the to the file sizes that you can upload at one time. I think it's 5 terabytes might be the max single like upload that you can do. That's the biggest object size, I believe. Maybe that's changed. Maybe it's 5 gigs. I don't really remember. But we can look that up as well in a second. But you can also check out AWS documentation, S3 documentation by doing an exclamation point S3, and that'll take you right to the S3 documentation for managing S3. Don't sweat it if you don't understand it. You don't really need to read through it, but definitely take a look at it. Do your best to read through some of it just to kind of get comfortable with reading cloud documentation, because I think it'll help you in the future. But yeah, S3, pretty cool. I guarantee you use it every day. The Mastermind website right now is running on S3. I need to stick it behind CloudFront and some other things, but it's running on there as well, so it makes it pretty easy to do. And actually, I'd be amazed to see a file that's 5 terabytes. Yeah, one day maybe I'll try to upload one, but yes, you can host a website on it. And actually, let's log into AWS really quick so I can show you kind of the interface for S3 and kind of show you the buckets that I have and what it looks like for web hosting and hosting files. So let me get logged in really quick. It's the wrong one. Almost did that again. All right. So S3 is, once you get into the interface, you can just click it here, and again, it's under storage. So S3, I'll make it a little bit larger here. Use to goodness, if you're asking if you can put database backups there, absolutely, you can put database backups there. When we talk a little bit later about RDS and some things like that, those have the option of going elsewhere. But yes, absolutely, you can put database backups in there. That is a very cheap way to store your database backups. It is a extremely common thing to do. You can put all kinds of backups in there, and it's, again, very, very cheap and immediately accessible. So all of these actually are, another big thing about AWS buckets. So because of the way S3 namespacing works, buckets actually have to be named uniquely. Maybe, I don't know if it's per region or if it's worldwide, but buckets have to be named uniquely. So you can see I have a bunch of buckets here. You cannot grab any of these buckets. They're taken. You can't grab any of them. And they're named this way because you used to have to name before CloudFront, or before people realized how good CloudFront was as an option for hosting websites. Using S3, you had to have the name of your bucket, in the way DNS works, you had to have the name of your bucket be the actual name of your website. So you see I have some stuff here for mastermind.io, and I also have one for www.mastermind.io. And in here I have a bunch of files. And remember, we talked about during the web hosting session that there are index files that sites use as their main source of serving up content. So I don't have a web server sitting in front of this. There's nothing processing. There's nothing I'm running. There's no Nginx or Apache service sitting in front of this processing this. This S3 bucket does it itself. So I upload files to the S3 bucket, and it serves them well. I actually don't upload them. I actually have a little pipeline that uploads them for me, but that serves the data to you. There are properties in here to be able to enable it. So I actually, let me see here. Oh yeah, so I'm serving everything out of this one. But you do have, you can set up that stuff in here. You kind of just click in and, it's disabled by default. It's disabled, and you can go ahead and enable it, and they'll give you an endpoint that you can also access things at. So you can see here, they gave me this S3 endpoint, and I can still access my site at this endpoint, which is pretty cool. You can do things like bucket object versioning. So I can actually, to make sure that I don't overwrite anything that I need or lose anything that I need, I can enable versioning. And what this does is this saves a version. If I overwrite a file, it saves a version of the old file, and I can always go back in that history. You do pay for all of that data though. So if you have, 3 copies of a file, you are paying for all of that data. But again, S3 is extremely, extremely cheap. extremely cheap. Then you can set up, permissions and things. So I can set up, who has access to the files that are in my bucket. I can set up, what people can do. Can people read them? Can people write to the bucket as well? So yeah, you have a lot of options here. And it's very simple to create a bucket. You just click create bucket, pick the name of your bucket, click next a few times. It'll ask you if you want to do, static web hosting and things like that. And you can create the bucket, and then you have a perfect place to be able to access that. And maybe I can show you, let me see, did I set up my AWS command line? S3. I think we set up this last time. Yeah, AWS. Maybe we'll do this at the end. Cool. It is not set up. We'll set this up at the end. Oh yeah, it is. Ignore that. I'm gonna have to. Oh, I deleted that user. Okay, that makes perfect sense. That's good. I can delete that then. But yeah, later on we'll get set up on the AWS command line, and we'll interact with S3 and all these other storage types once we get there. All right. Let's see here. Cool. So that's S3. Again, we'll go back to it. We'll be using S3 a lot. You'll see S3 a lot. It is important that you know a lot of things about S3. But what other options do you have for storage? The next one you have, actually, let's go to EBS first, because we talked about EC2 last time. I think this is a better segue, and then we'll talk about EFS after this. So EBS. EBS stands for Elastic Block Storage. And so actually, if you go into services, and if you're in your own Amazon portal or your own console, you won't see EBS underneath the storage section. This is because EBS, although it is its own service, it only lives behind EC2, and that is kind of the place where you go to be able to find information out about it and to be able to administer EBS. And you can see here Elastic Block Store, and you can click in here and do all the things that you need to do. Very confusing. It was very confusing to me when I first started learning about storage on AWS. But let's talk about what it is first. So EBS, non-ephemeral storage that backs EC2. So again, we talked about EC2 having something called instance storage. So you spin up an EC2 instance, and it has some storage, and you can save stuff on it, but as soon as you terminate that instance, that's gone forever. In distributed computing models, you don't really want to do that, because you actually are going to be spinning up and destroying compute instances probably pretty often. They're kind of throwaway commodities, really. So you don't want storage that is going to be gone every time that server is deleted. So EBS is the way that they've solved this. And again, this is block storage. So we talked about object storage versus block storage. This is block storage. This is your traditional hard disk. You can see this over here. And I just threw this in here. If you never knew kind of how a hard disk worked, maybe this helps, but probably not. Most drives are SSDs now, especially in the cloud. But again, it's non-ephemeral, so the data will stick around. The second great thing about this is you can mount multiple EBS volumes to an EC2 instance in the same availability zone. So as long as they're in the same availability zone, so we talked about regions, which is kind of that big geographical region, like US East one or Singapore, like those big geographical regions that have 3 availability zones inside them. So smaller data centers that are separated, kind of blocked off together, but they all have low latency links in between them. As long as they're in, the same AZ, one of the same availability zones, you can mount multiple of these hard drives. So EBS is a hard drive, basically. You can mount multiple, more than one of them to one EC2 instance. So that's just like connecting, most computers, especially desktops, you can plug in multiple hard drives. It is just like that. You can think about it just like that. And again, because they can be mounted to whatever servers you want, you can also detach them from servers. So EBS volumes are very interesting because you can detach them and remove them and move them to another instance if you need to. you pay for only what you use. So you pay for the amount of data, even if you provision a bunch of gigs. I'm pretty sure you only pay for what is saved on there. That's the amount of data that you take up. And what's very interesting about this is it has excellent backup functionality with something called snapshots. And snapshots are very interesting because they are, when you take a new snapshot of the drive. So let's say I take a snapshot today and it has 10 gigs of data on it. Let's say I add 500 megabytes of data, or let's say I add another gig of data. When I take my snapshot tomorrow, it does some magic, and that next snapshot only saves 1 gig of data, basically. So I don't need to pay for 20 gigs of storage for my snapshots. I only pay for 10 gig plus the extra 1 gig, even though I have 2 snapshots, which is very interesting, which is very cool. It makes it pretty great for cost savings, and it makes it pretty great for when you need to restore backups. So let me hop back in the chat, answer some questions here. A walkthrough of your pipeline for S3 sites will probably help a lot of people. Yes, absolutely. We will actually. I actually think I did one a long time ago. I set up basically a static website and set up some stuff through a CI/CD pipeline to get things in S3. We will do all of that again. We'll actually do it with a bigger application though. We'll do all that when we get to the CI/CD section. So once we're hopping into Circle CI, Circle CI was the original thing we were going to use. I think we're going to use GitHub's CI pipeline now. I forgot what it's called because it's new, it's cool. GitHub's cool, so we might try that out. But absolutely, we will walk through that pipeline for sure. We'll all set one up together, no problem. Is non-ephemeral the same as non-volatile in this context? Yes. Yes. So volatile, once you lose power, so things like RAM, once you lose power, that data goes away and is gone. Non-ephemeral, yes, it is non-volatile. It sticks around. It is permanent. It's permanent for as long as you want it to be permanent for. Never understood how EC2 fits in with EBS. Yeah, it is a little confusing because everyone touts EC2 as basically a server. So you think you get all of those compute resources. You think you get all those, and you do. You get them when you set them up. They're available to you, but EC2 is really just the CPU and RAM, to be honest. And it has to be backed by. People wouldn't use it if it wasn't backed by some type of permanent storage, and EBS solves that problem. Is ECDSA now insecure? All my servers use it. I actually don't know what that is. Do you mind telling me what that is? Maybe I know what it is, but I'm not sure what that is. But GitHub Actions, those still invite only? I don't know. So that's a good question. Maybe I'll get on that and check. I assume they were publicly available. So I assumed GitHub Actions was publicly available, but I'll check it out. It's private key for crypto for SH. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's insecure. To be honest, like I said, I actually don't really. The project that I'm on, we've actually gotten away from logging into servers, which is very interesting. You do all of your management through code. We don't log into anything, which is really nice. So I don't know. I actually haven't had to deal with SSH keys, honestly, in years now, which has been pretty interesting. But I'm sure I will have to. Coming up probably for something. But yeah, I'm actually not. I'm not too sure about that. Cool. So that's what EBS is, and we're gonna go in and we're gonna create a volume really quick that attaches to something. So you can create a volume here, so you do not have to do this during the EC2 process creation process. If you would like to do it through the EC2 creation process, you can. But I think all of their stuff is, all their general purpose stuff is on solid state drives. So solid state storage is a lot faster. Flash memory is a lot faster. And you can set up as much as you want here for general purpose. I think you can get up to, what is this? That's a lot of terabytes of data here. But you can get up that you can go to the max here. And I think they all have different amounts that you can go to, or maybe not. I thought they would have. Okay, I guess magnetic is your traditional hard drive. Don't do that. Same thing as cold HDD. keep it on GP2, set how much you want. I don't really want that much. We'll make 100 here. So availability zone, we want to make sure this is in the same place as the server that we're going to deploy. I'll just click 1A, select snapshot. So this is, you can use these snapshots, you can use them to deploy to create a new volume. So if I want, I can use any of these to create a volume. This is great, especially if you want to use something as your boot drive. So by default, this is there's like a standard. I think I have one on my desk right here. This is like a standard hard drive out of the box. So if you buy a new hard drive, you plug it in your computer. It actually it's not formatted to do anything. That is kind of how it is. It's only formatted to be readable and partitioned properly. But it doesn't have anything on it actually. So you can set it up to have an operating system if you want that to be your boot drive, or you can base it off of something else if you need to, but you do not have to. You can encrypt the volume if you need to. Then you can add some tags like names and stuff. And then you can just create it, and you can see it created really fast, gave me an ID. Actually, it's still creating, but it it's that easy to create, to basically give yourself more hard drive space that you can go ahead then and attach to a server. So we will let that spin up while we talk about EFS. But yes, again, EBS, think about it just like this hard drive, and this is what backs EC2. So EBS is block storage that backs EC2 instances. It can be detached and attached to instances. Multiple EBS volumes can be attached to the same instance as long as they're in the same availability zone. And again, they can be detached from one and added to another if need be. They stick around for a long time. Storage on EBS is also pretty cheap, but not nearly as cheap as S3. So whenever you're thinking about storage solutions, so these are the type of things people hire cloud engineers for when you're thinking about storage solutions and how to save money and the best way to be able to quickly access data. S3 is cheaper, but everything can't be saved inside of S3. EBS may be the go-to if you need certain things, certain storage. If you have certain storage needs, EBS is an option, which also can be very cheap, but not as cheap as S3. All right. I can explain what Elastic Bean. Let me finish up with the storage section, and then we can talk about what Elastic Beanstalk actually is. It is a very interesting tool. It's a very interesting tool. But yeah, we'll definitely talk about that in a second. Cool. Let's go to database service. I don't know. We need to go back to EFS. So the last storage option we're going to talk about tonight, I know there's another on the curriculum. There's another storage type, which is storage gateway. Well, I'll just talk about it a bit, but it's not something you need to know right now. That's for really large scale organizations, to be honest, with their own kind of on-prem data centers. We'll talk about that in a second, but EFS, Elastic File System. So this is a really powerful tool, especially in today's world of microservices and containers and things like that. But the Elastic File System it's basically a scalable, elastic network attached file system. So what does that mean? One, it's scalable and it's elastic, meaning that it can serve lots of servers, and that it can grow as needed. So it's elastic, it can grow and it can contract as needed, so you can get as much space as you need, and it can both grow and contract as needed, and you only pay for what you use. And it's network attached, so instead of being an attached file system, like directly attached to that compute instance, it's attached over the network. And so this is a pretty common thing. But what this allows you to do is to also be able to attach this to lots of different hosts at once. And this is not necessarily bound by availability zones either. So it'll basically give you set up one of these. It'll basically hand you an endpoint URL for basically each of the availability zones of the region you're in, and you can use those endpoints to attach this to your server. And so it uses a protocol called NFS. So we talked about protocols. NFS is, network file storage, I believe, is what NFS stands for. But it uses the NFS protocol to be able to attach this to your server and to be able to use it. It appears to be a regular hard drive. It absolutely, works in it works like a normal hard drive. You store things to it. It exists on the file system, and it has its own file system that you can navigate. But it is, again, attached over network and not directly to the instance. And again, the benefit of multiple hosts being able to attach to it is, let's say you have this server that's saving data to it, or you have data stored and it needs to scale up, and it scales up to 2 instances, and now people are connected to 2 servers, and people are uploading files, uploading images or something that's part of your application. And how does server 1 get files from server 2? And let's say it scales up again, and now people are hitting 3 different servers, and data needs to be shared. This is why Elastic File Systems, and this is why NFS is good, because now you can have this one file system that's network attached out to multiple nodes. So as things scale up, they can all just connect back down to this one storage spot, which is really great. It makes it very easy. You don't really have to worry about replicating files between servers. It makes it really simple for all of your servers and all of your services and tools to be able to share data across all of them. But there are some caveats with this. One, it is much more expensive than your other 2 options. So much more expensive than EBS, like 1,000 times more expensive than S3. But yeah, it's fast. It works really well. But again, all these are just essentially forms of hard drives. This one's attached via the network. That's probably the most important thing to remember, and that it can be attached to multiple hosts at once, so you don't have to worry about any kind of data replication, etc. And let's go in and look at what that looks like. So we do have EFS here, and you can go ahead. It looks like I don't think I created this, but you create one. Actually, let's go back, because this one, there's nothing on here, and I guess I can attach to this. But what it does give me is, where are my endpoints? Manage file system. It'll actually give you, so these are some security groups for me to allow access to this thing, because again, it's just over the network. So the same way that we would connect to a web server is the same way that we would connect to something like this. It has IP addresses, so we're connecting via that way, and it's got some mounting instructions here on how to connect, and it should give me, it'll give me how to mount to my EFS server, and I can mount it to, basically I can mount this over the network, but then I can mount it to a directory on my computer. So actually, we'll actually log in and do that as well. We'll try to hop in and create one and mount it to our system there as well. So times are cool. That's all of the storage stuff. So if there's any questions on storage, this is a slide I just had on NFS. It's a network file system, and it's a distributed file system protocol originally developed by Sun Microsystems. That part's not important, but it allows the user on a client computer to access files over a computer network, much like local storage. So again, this is just transferring the data over the network rather than local storage, but it acts the exact same way. Cool, yes. So does anyone have any questions about storage? Maybe we'll set up a user really quick, and I'll show you guys how to get into S3, and we'll mess around with EBS. So EBS is internal server storage, be a NAS or DAS maybe. So EBS is internal server storage. Yes. A NAS is actually exactly what we just talked about with EFS. So a NAS is network attached storage. That is what EFS is. S3 S3 is not, S3 is Dropbox. Like Dropbox, I think was originally built on S3. That's exact, like Dropbox is exactly what S3 is, or Google Drive. It's, you know, it's just this external place to literally drop files and to be able to access them later. So it's not really, you can't really think about it like a normal storage protocol or storage service that you would use on a normal computer that you might be used to. But it is just like Dropbox. They're the same thing. I actually use S3 like exactly like Dropbox now. It just doesn't have a cool interface like Dropbox does. Do you know what an inspection tool is for software dev? So, I mean, I don't know. Are you talking about like the tool for like inspecting an element on a page? If that's what you're talking about, yes. Chrome has a great one, so does Firefox, and you can use it to find out information about a page and to troubleshoot and debug. If that's what you're talking about, you can just right click and to be able to get to it. I think, what's the shortcut? Shortcut is, I guess it's Q, but I think it's like, I thought it was like Control I. Nope, that's not it. I don't know. Oh, it's Firefox. I'm used to Chrome. But yes, if that's what you're talking about, then this is what it is. NFS is considered pretty slow. Do you see any network speed issues using it? So, NFS yes, NFS is considered to be pretty slow, but the way that Amazon is set up, they have really, really, really fast piping in between all of their services and servers. So it's probably going to be a lot faster than the network attached storage you're used to, because again, they have really fast data speeds in between their services and servers. I've never noticed any data speed problems with it, but again, it all depends upon your application. Again, there are absolutely situations where NFS will not be useful. I think NFS caps out at like 250 gigs per second. So if you're downloading 250 gigs per second or consuming 250 gigs per second, it is not going to be useful to you. You'll have to figure out something else, because I'm pretty sure that's the max amount. Can you run a DB on EBS? Absolutely, you can run a database on EBS. We're about to hop into databases, and 1000% you can run one, and maybe we'll install one on EBS. So because Elastic Block Store is like your normal hard drive, you can install whatever you want on Elastic Block Store. You can run anything on Elastic Block Store, but you'll have to set it up manually. And that's your flexibility within the cloud, but there's likely a managed service for what you want. So yeah, we're about to get into database in a second, but that's a great question. You absolutely can. Terabytes of throughput network, yeah, like their network throughput is very high, but EFS though maxes out. Let's check this out. EFS max speed, max IO, I guess. Because maybe you can pay for more. Oh, okay. Well then, I don't know why I thought, maybe I was checking something else. Oh yeah, it looks like it's pretty darn fast. So you probably will see no performance issues with EFS. Like I said, I've never seen performance issues with EFS so far. But again, every application is different, and everyone's needs are different. Cool. All right, so let's hop into databases so we can get hands-on with some of this stuff. Let's run through the database stuff really quick. So database services, and so database services in AWS are going to be this section here. We are actually only going to be going over RDS and DynamoDB. All of these are important, but I would only focus on these two to start. Focusing on all these services would be nuts and very confusing. It's probably already very, very confusing, but all these things are important. Maybe read about them, but we're going to focus on these two today. So RDS. Actually, so first, what is a database? You may not be familiar with what a database is. All it is a systematic collection of data. Databases support storage and manipulation of data. Databases make data management easy. So What databases do is they allow you to easily be able to manage and access and manipulate data and store data as well. These images over here, this is kind of the universal sign symbol for a database. So if you see the little, what looks like a barrel with like 3 layers, that is the traditional symbol for a database. So if you see it, think database. But there are a few types of databases. These are not the only 2 types of databases, but because today we're only talking about RDS and DynamoDB, we will only talk about these 2 types of databases. So the first one would be relational. Relational databases, so I put SQL in there because SQL is a querying language. We're gonna talk about SQL in a little bit. That's generally what you want to think about when you're talking about relational databases. But this is a database management system that defines database relationships in form of tables, also known as relations. So relational databases are exactly what they sound like. The data is structured and it's put in these tables where these tables have relationships with other pieces of data. Why is this? Why would you want that? It makes it easier to be able to get out specific information and find information, that relates to other information. It's pretty important. So you may have, maybe I work for a company that sells a bunch of products, and I may have a database online that says, hey, there's this user, and we're gonna attach their data to their email, and it also needs to have a relationship to their account number and to their last purchase date and things like that. So the data has relationships, and you can use that data to easily be able to find other data. And so it uses SQL to query that data. So SQL is it's a redundant. I believe it's a redundant acronym, but I think SQL stands for SQL Query Language, I believe. And actually, let's confirm that. I'm pretty sure it's what it stands for. Structured query language. And SQL is pretty easy to learn. You could probably learn SQL and the basics of SQL in a couple of hours, maybe 5 hours. If this is your first time hopping into it, 5 or 6 hours. You can learn, the language of SQL and kind of the structure and like how to try to, get data out. But it takes a while to master and to get really good at. It takes you'll have times when you have very complex queries and that you've got to write and to get out specific data that you need. But you can learn the basics of SQL in a couple of hours, to be 100% honest. But one of the problems of relational databases and SQL is that they can be difficult to scale. And in a world where everything is positioned to be served to everyone, scalability is important. And while relational databases absolutely can be scalable, it does take some work. They can be finicky. There are caveats. It is hard to make them scalable and be reliable at the same time, which is very, very it's weird. It kind of sucks. I don't really like dealing with relational databases, even though they're a necessary evil. I don't even call them evil. They're necessary, but they are, to someone who manages systems, they can be a bit of a handful at times. The one great thing about them, so we talk about something bad about them, is that they can get out complex data or complex queries very quickly, very, very fast. To get out the data that you want when the query is very complex. But cool. That's what a relational database is. So this next one is the newcomer. So NoSQL. You probably heard NoSQL before. It doesn't stand for no SQL. NoSQL stands for not only SQL, meaning that you can grab this data in more ways than just SQL. It's unstructured, in quotes, it's unstructured. The schema is dynamic. So relational databases, you've got to define those tables and you got to define, the structure of the data. You don't have to do that in NoSQL tables. So it's a dynamic schema. It doesn't need to be, predefined. What this does is it makes development fast. NoSQL tables are great for when you're developing a new product, when you're developing something you can move pretty quickly because you don't have to do database migrations to to fix schemas and update schemas in tables and move data around to the right places. You can kind of do that on the fly with NoSQL. And then they're horizontally scalable, so very easily horizontally scalable. So there are two concepts. They're scaling up and scaling out. One is bigger resources. The other one is more resources. So that's scaling out. So like instead of having you can either take a server and it has 8 gigs of RAM and 1 virtual CPU, and you can scale it up, and now it's has 32 gigs of RAM and 2 vCPUs, or you can scale it out and you can just add more of the same servers alongside of it. It is really good to horizontally scale to scale out, as opposed to relational databases, but it's not good for complex queries. So we talked about relational databases being great for complex queries. NoSQL is not. It's pretty slow for complex queries, and it's kind of hard to use for complex queries. So that is absolutely a problem. It's definitely a problem. It can be a deal breaker for the type of application that you're going to use. So yeah, it's why DBAs are a thing. Absolutely, relational databases absolutely are why database administrators are a thing. There are dedicated jobs for this. Those DBA jobs are dying. But they definitely, for sure, a lot of companies still need DBAs. The DBAs are typically worse than the databases of data. So I'm not gonna say that. I haven't worked with a DBA in a while. And when I did work with a DBA, they knew so much more than me about all of this stuff that I just assumed they were great. But I have only heard bad things about DBAs. So if you're a DBA, I'm sorry you have this bad stigma associated with you. I'll do my best to not add to that. Because I don't have anything good to say, so I won't say anything at all. What do DBAs do apart from partitions? So I think most of the time DBAs are performance monitoring and optimizing queries, is my understanding, but I'm not really sure. I think they also do a bit of data modeling and data design, I guess, but I'm not sure. Is NoSQL synonymous with non-relational here? Yes, the data is, non-relational data. Absolutely. Moving to management. Cool. So querying doesn't scale. Querying does scale. Well, querying scales on relational databases. Yes. That's an interesting question. Querying can scale. Absolutely. But again, it is mind-boggling actually how fast at first glance, like when you're trying to learn this stuff and you're messing around with small subsets of data, you're gonna get into NoSQL. You're gonna go from relational data to NoSQL data, and you're gonna be like, oh man, why doesn't everyone use NoSQL? And then you're gonna have to run a complex query, or you're gonna run a complex query. And you're gonna be like, oh man, the speed difference here is absolutely out of control, and you're gonna be like I see why. It took me a while to realize why you need relational databases. I was like, everyone should just switch over, mostly because I want to be as lazy as possible, and I don't want to manage very difficult to manage databases or systems. And NoSQL, because of how NoSQL is very simple in comparison, and you'll actually see that even in the managed services that we're going to talk about shortly. They're even in those, managing the NoSQL side of things is a whole lot easier. Cool. So what does Amazon offer for relational databases? They have a service called RDS, which is very simple. This is one of their few services that I think has a good name, but it's RDS. It's Relational Database Service. And it's a fully managed, scalable relational database service. What does that mean? Fully managed means you do not have to worry about the underlying servers. So the question was asked earlier, hey, can you install a database onto EBS? Don't forget EBS is the database, is the storage that backs EC2 instances. So yes, absolutely, you can spin up an EC2 instance that has an EBS storage attached, and you can go ahead and log in and install, MySQL or Postgres onto the server, and you can set it up yourself and set up your tables and everything. Absolutely, you can do that. But then you've got to manage the upgrading the packages on the server and making sure, if a new version of MySQL comes out with, security changes and things, you've got to update those yourself, and you've got to mitigate anything that breaks. You've got to do all the patching and everything. You got to handle all of the scaling yourself. You got to set up replication, all that manually yourself, which is very time consuming. It's very costly to manage that. A fully managed service takes all that away. They handle the underlying server. They handle the patching, all that stuff. You say, hey, I would like a MySQL database, and of this size. And they will say, great, I will set that up for you. You don't worry about the server at all. All I will give you is, your username and your input, or you can put in your own username and password, but it'll basically just give you an endpoint to connect to. So you can manage and access and connect to MySQL over port 3306. So that's TCP port 3306, but they'll basically just give you that endpoint that's running over the same port, and you can go ahead and connect to it. So I can spin one up now, and I'll do that, and connect to it locally from my computer and manage it there, and set up my tables and or push my data into it. And it's really nice not having to worry about the extra stuff. It also makes it so that if you want to set up replication or scaling, you don't have to set all that stuff up manually. You can, with the click of a few buttons, you can have, read replicas. So you can have a server that's mirroring your current server that to serve more people. That is basically data is getting read off of both of them, but only written to one to make sure the data is consistent. You can have automatic failover. So, if you have this read replica over here, and let's say something bad happens and your relational database goes down, your main one goes down, or the connection's lost, the read replica can actually be promoted automatically, can be promoted to the master instance. So it adds a lot of functionality, especially for organizations that, you have a mission critical workflow, and this stuff can't go down. These managed services provide a lot of functionality to be able to make sure they're resilient, reliable, and scalable as well. So that's what you get from this fully managed service. And inside of the service, you have things, it supports all these things. So Amazon's Aurora is something that Amazon created. It's a database that Amazon created. It is a drop-in replacement for MySQL, but it's cheaper. I do use it on my project. Found that it works just fine. It does support MySQL. It does support MariaDB. MariaDB is also a drop-in replacement for MySQL. Postgres. It does Oracle Server as well, and Microsoft SQL Server. So it supports all these things. You can go in and you can simply spin one up. RDSs are expensive, so this is the trade-off here. So you can absolutely install these databases inside of EC2. That's backed by EBS, and you can set them up, install them, and manage them yourself. That is cheaper for the services that you're going to pay Amazon for. A lot cheaper than RDS. RDS is actually pretty expensive. I have one right now, and actually I'll show you my billing. Hopefully I paid my bill recently, but I'll actually show you my billing, and you can see my breakdown is actually I forgot I had spun down my RDS. I used to have an RDS instance in here, and actually removed it and put the database onto my EC2 instances because of how expensive RDS was. But it is very expensive. But you can see here my S3 bill is 11 cents, and the Mastermind site is one of the sites that I have on there, and right now I'm averaging like around 3,000 to 4,000 views per month on the site. So for all of that, I'm paying 11 cents plus storage. I have one of my buckets in there has all of my wedding photos on there. It has a couple of gigs, maybe like 10 gigs of wedding photos on there. And for all of that, I'm only paying around 11 cents per month for this. For that service. But RDS, it is by far the most expensive thing on there. So let's see here. That's why I do IIS, because I set things up myself, because I have that full control. Sure, absolutely. I definitely understand wanting to have that full control. That full control can be expensive though. Like, especially for a company, it's costly to pay. If someone's paying you, $80 an hour to do something that, if they just paid Amazon, an extra $20 a month for, they're really losing money on that. So like, it is better. I do like to do things myself to kind of have that full control. It does suck sometimes not having that full control with these managed services, but that's the nature of the game. These managed services do save you. They save you time. Most of the time, they can be a hassle. Like we just had a problem with Amazon where our cloud search instance went down. So if you want to set up search, kind of like Google, if you want to set that up in your site, you can use something, a tool in Amazon called Cloud Search. And our cloud search domain went down for days, and we had to wait for Amazon to kind of come in and resolve that problem, which sucks. But the amount of time it would take for us to spin up our own search instance using like Elasticache or something like that is pretty crazy. RDS is pricey for sure. How you use security groups and accessing RDS from Elastic Beanstalk. So Elastic Beanstalk, really quick, is a service that you can use. It was originally built to be able to allow developers to quickly spin up web apps. So it was kind of an easy way. It was like one of the early passes at like infrastructure as code stuff, where you set up some configuration and you could easily be able to kind of set up this kind of pipeline and architecture in here, and you could just deploy it. You could deploy this platform. It's a platform as a service, and it would install that stuff for you, so you wouldn't have to manually know how to do all of this stuff. So the security groups for you should be able to simply give your Elastic Beanstalk, whatever your Elastic Beanstalk's security group is that's attached to the main app, you should be able to just attach the same policy to the RDS instance, and it should work. It should work that way. Maybe message me offline. Maybe message me in, if you're having a lot of trouble with it, message me in the Slack, and maybe we can hop on a call. It's usually easier to kind of work through it together, or just send me some screenshots, but you should be able to just do that. And it should work just fine, even outside for RDS instance that wasn't spun up inside of Elastic Beanstalk. It should still work fine, but you may need to make sure that they are spun up in the same. I think they just need to be in the same region. I don't think they need to be in the same AZ. I think there are endpoints for all the AZs, but if not, try to make sure they're in the same AZ, because that'll make it easiest. But I think they just need to be in the same region, and they should be fine. RDS is just a script. Yes. For sure. Also, are you more of a Rel 8 guy or an Ubuntu server kind of guy? So, I am definitely more of a Rel server guy. I prefer Rel's mirrors and packages for things that I need to do for enterprise stuff rather than Ubuntu. I prefer Ubuntu-based distributions for personal stuff. They have a lot of cool packages and cool tooling for things that I want to do personally, like gaming and stuff. But I am a Rel guy when it comes to hosting enterprise applications and setting things up enterprise. So we talked about S3. S3 is simple storage service that is object storage that you can use. Think about it kind of like a thumb drive. They're S3 buckets. It's basically a bucket where you can just store your data. Let's see. What do the three S's S3 stand for? Simple storage service. Again, Amazon's not great at naming their services at all. Let's see here. It's a point where I've been questioning whether I should set up my own reverse proxy server. I do hate thinking about having to get rid of the CDN aspect of Cloudflare. I'm only a new fan of CDNs. The CloudFront for AWS is pretty good. Cloudflare is not bad. Setting up your own reverse proxy works well too. Again, it depends on what your needs are. There's no wrong answer. Whatever is easiest for you to manage is probably best. How I was looking at it, some storage service. I finally got around to replacing CentOS, Fedora, Rel. I actually haven't messed with Rel 8 yet. I need to see what's new within Rel 8 because Rel 7 was so big. I'm assuming Rel 8 will have a substantial feature set change, but I'll check it out. I'll get around to it one of these days. Canonical, yeah, Canonical's not great, but again, I do find it way better. I do find Ubuntu or Debian based distributions way better for personal stuff, for desktop use, for sure. Someone who uses Debian. The main user-facing differences between Debian, Ubuntu, and Rel CentOS. So most of it is packaging. Most of it are the because Rel is enterprise focused. A lot of the packages that are developed, like people develop packages for enterprise level software. I think that the packages are cleaner and the packages are usually safer and easier to set up on Rel because people are building these for that for that distribution. I think a lot of even things like there's a video editing tool called was it called? DaVinci Resolve, which is a professional grade color grading and video production software, and they only package it for Rel. They say it has Linux support. They only package it for Rel and CentOS, and that's the case with a lot of enterprise level packages and services and tools. And they're a little bit easier to get and a little bit easier to find. I kind of like Yum a lot as well for dealing with those things. I think it's a little bit easier to deal with than DPKG for Ubuntu or Debian or .debs. There aren't a lot of deb packages for enterprise level things. So yeah, that's basically what I see as the main user facing differences. Like you'll definitely get a lot of cool things for Debian though out of the box, like Steam and like NVIDIA driver support and things like that. I find to be a lot easier on Ubuntu and Red Hat based distributions for sure. But cool. All right, so let's actually get in here. We didn't talk about the last. We talked about the relational database service. Actually, I meant to go in here and show you what that looks like in here. And let's spin one up actually so that we can connect to it. I'll let it spin up and we'll go do some other stuff while that spins up. You can see here, this looks as confusing as every other page on AWS. But I can go ahead and create a database. So I'll just click the button to create a database. And so you can already see the value here, how quick you can move, how this is why the cloud's so great. I don't need to know how to install this myself. We'll use MySQL because Aurora's fine, either one. Again, I think Aurora is a little bit cheaper. And you can do this easy create or standard create. I'll leave it on the standard for now. I'll let it know which version of MySQL I want. This is fine. I'll do free tier so I can develop a new application against it. So you can use this free tier. And the only reason I was not using the free tier for the stuff that I was working on is my wife actually has a blog. I'm gonna promote that one day. I'll post it up here called Flicker to Flames. But she was actually getting enough traffic to where it was destroying the free tier of RDS. So I ended up paying for. I was paying a lot. Like I think the RDS instance, the smallest one, I want to say it's something like $40 a month, which that's a lot to me. That's for something that's not. I don't know. It's a lot for a database to me. But you can set the name here. Just stream test. And then you can set a username. So you need to be able to log in with a username or a password. So I'll leave it as admin. Actually, yeah, I'll leave it as admin. Admin, I can't type. Auto generate password. Sure. I'll set up, I have to use this one because this is the free tier. Storage type. So what do I get for free? Minimum. I'll leave it on 20. I'm not going to use this for anything. What? It just said 20. What happened? I'll leave it there and hopefully it fixes itself. There we go. And so storage auto scaling. So basically it'll auto scale if I need more storage. If I use up my 20 gigs, it'll automatically, scale up my storage. And so this is cool because, if you do it on EBS yourself, you'll have to manually do that yourself. It's a tough case to, it's not hard to expand your hard drives on EBS, but it can mess with your data, especially with databases, when you're doing that, and it is a lot of extra work. So you get some cool stuff out of the box there. Multi-AZ deployments, I can deploy this in multiple availability zones if I wanted to. We'll talk about VPCs, I believe, next week, and just kind of click through, and we'll use the defaults. Let's go ahead and create this database, and once it's spun up, we'll go ahead and connect to it. It'll take a little bit of time to spin up. So while that's spinning up, let's talk about, oops, I was supposed to pull, hold on. Is this, okay. Well, there's supposed to be one in here for DynamoDB. So we talk about NoSQL. Amazon has a service called DynamoDB. So DynamoDB, you can read it here. It's a fast and flexible NoSQL database service for all applications that need consistent single-digit millisecond latency at any scale. So that would make you think that if I was first reading that would seem weird after I said, hey, if you have a complex query, it's not going to really work well for a NoSQL database. And that's because this is not talking about queries at all. It's talking about the scale. So we talked about NoSQL databases being able to scale out very well. DynamoDB does this very, very well. I wouldn't say DynamoDB is not expensive, but it's not cheap either. It is Amazon service, so their own service that they built are a lot cheaper than other services. There is one more in here. There's one more NoSQL database thing in here by default. But basically, same thing. It's a managed service. You don't actually need to worry about a server or anything, but you create these things you basically create a table, and the table is your database. And so I'm going to just call something stream data, and then maybe I might not be able to start it with that. And then you need a partition key. This partition key is the main key that you're going to be using to define your data. And so we'll call it names or something like that. And we'll use the default settings. You can see here, it doesn't have the same amount of options because NoSQL tables are a lot simpler. And then this will create my table name, and then I can just stick items into it. And basically, so it's not only this, but I want you to think about if this is your first time hearing about NoSQL, you don't know anything about databases. Think about NoSQL as key value stores. Maybe I might have a key of name, so I may put a record in here that says name Aaron, and it may be matched to a last name. My last name is Brooks, and it may be matched to something like that. So the first time I saw the value of NoSQL database, when I was trying to understand how it differed from relational databases, if you have, I'm trying to be careful here, but if you have some familiarity with a relational database and you're trying to really understand what NoSQL is, think about it as a key value store database first. Start with that. Watch a couple of examples and see if that makes a little bit of sense to you when just trying to conceptualize what it is. And we'll throw some data in here in a second and show you how quick it is to access for very simple things, very simple queries, and we'll also show you how the data does not really relate to each other at all. But you do have some options here. But again, Dynamo is fast. It's fast again if you're not doing complex queries, and then again, it's scalable in that you don't provision. You don't need to worry about server size. You need to worry about something called read and write capacity. And there's a special calculation for this, and it's a function basically of the amount of requests that you're making per second. Both for read and write, they're calculated differently. And so you used to have to provision these things manually. So you would have to do some math. You would say, hey, I'm getting 5 requests per second on this table. I need 3 units of read capacity. And so they'll give you that calculation. But now, as you know, the cloud has moved forward, you don't need to calculate that yourselves anymore. Amazon will do that for you. That dynamic capacity, I think, is a little more expensive. So on demand costs more. And see, it tells you right up front when you click it that, hey, this will affect how it calculates your bill, because it doesn't know what the cost is going to be. But if you provision, you set these capacities, so this will determine the speed in which you can access that data. 5 and 5 will be fine. And again, this is an estimated cost calculator, pretty cheap, $2.91 per month. Again, if you have a lot of data, it's going to be more than that, but estimated cost, $2.91 per month. Very cheap, especially for smaller projects and things like that. Something that you can, use for prototyping. It's pretty great. Cool. But so you cannot, there's no way to connect to this. This is your only insight into your tables are to interact with Amazon either via the console or through their APIs. So if you want to, grab the SDK for JavaScript or something, you can, or use the AWS CLI, you can query your data that way, but there's no way to kind of connect to it through your terminal or anything like that to be able to access that stuff. Can you use, actually, let me move up a little bit. Someone who has been working with SQL DBs for 15 years. It was super hard to wrap my head around NoSQL. Absolutely. Basically, just think of it as not a database, more like a place to store values. Yes, that is very much what I see it as. It's a place to store values and to easily be able to pull those values out later. Can I use DynamoDB tables as views, feeding data from a relational database, Dynamo to evade the use of joins? Maybe. I've never used it in that fashion, but I doubt it, because views are generally heavily dependent upon that data relationship. It usually has information about a key item, like a node or something, with all the data, the appropriate data mapped in there. I guess there are ways you could use it. But I think it would be gross. I think it would be a lot of extra work, and it wouldn't make really any sense to do. But maybe actually not something that I've done before at all. But yeah, NoSQL absolutely is your kitchen junk drawer with data. It really is kind of like that. It's kind of all this data just sitting in here, and for you to try to pull out. But again, it's you've got to pass it a simple query for it to be meaningful, for it to be quick. All right, cool. So let's go back. That was everything. So that was basically the storage and database sections. So just to tell you what FSX is, you can run. So it's important to note that EFS and EBS and all that, those are all Linux specific file systems. So Linux, Mac, and Windows actually have very different file systems that they are compatible with. And EFS and EBS, those only work with Linux. S3 is a separate thing. It's not attached to a server, so you don't need to worry about that. But again, EFS and EBS are Linux only. And so people were like, hey, we use Windows servers, you allow us to deploy Windows servers, how do we get that same functionality? And that is what FSX is originally for, but I think it's been, when it was first announced, it was specifically to promote Windows, but I think it's for any third-party file system now. I think even for Macs, if you need it, if you have Mac servers or something, I think you can set that up as well. But FSX allows you to do the same thing. It's a fully managed third-party file system, so that works with things other than your normal Linux distributions. So that's important to know about, but you probably won't hit that too often. I don't hear many people talk about that all that often. We talked about S3 Glacier. Storage Gateway is kind of this hybrid. If your company has an on-prem, meaning like they have their own data center, they have their own servers and things on-prem, it is a hybrid system in a way to basically connect your on-prem stuff, your on-prem storage to AWS's cloud storage, and to be able to basically use the cloud use cloud storage along with your own data centers in a fast way. It's not a thing that I think it's something you should know about, especially if you're trying to be like a solutions architect, but probably something that you will not have to implement very often. And then AWS Backup is just a backup tool. It's a way for you to automate backups, across AWS services. Yes, it's there. It's available for you. I don't know if it's a good service or not. Never used it before. There's a million ways to automate your backups. I think easier ways, but I've never used it, so I don't know for sure. All right, so let me see here. Basically, everyone has a documents folder on every computer. LS desktop on spot. All right, and then the database stuff. What else was in here? So Elasticache. Let's actually open up all these just so I'll skip Q. Actually, I'll open them all up. So Elasticache is actually a pretty cool service. It's a pretty cool tool. It is a you can use it for a couple of different things. Actually, a lot of people use it for setting up search servers and to basically be able to take it and aggregate this data and to be able to search through it, to cache it, to serve it up faster. So Elasticache is pretty cool for a lot of things. So maybe something you have to use one day. I actually don't. I didn't know what Neptune was, but I know what it is now. Graph databases are pretty new, or at least they're very new to me. And I just started hearing about them. I don't know how, like, when the technology was first created. But a graph database basically is a database that consumes APIs. So we'll talk about APIs later, but basically these are basically endpoints that you can use to be able to get data from other companies without having to have access to their databases and things, and to get information from them. And it basically allows you to kind of ingest all of that stuff and to be able to make complex queries that need information from multiple things all at once. It allows you to kind of combine that query into one so that you don't have to make a bunch of different calls and get all that data back together. I think it's kind of a new thing, but I guess Neptune is for that. Never used Neptune, but that's pretty cool that they have that. I may check that out. Redshift. I believe Redshift is data warehousing. I believe. Let me see here. Why aren't they telling me? What is Redshift? Let's Google this real quick because I don't actually know. It is fully managed petabytes. Yeah, it's for data warehousing. So when you have tons and tons and tons and tons of data, you use Redshift to manage that. And so yeah, that's for data warehousing. You can see here they say petabytes, petabyte scale data. So when you have just so much, Redshift is for that. Never had to use Redshift, but I know a lot of companies need people who know Redshift, especially as we get further and further into the future. Everyone's just constantly collecting data and constantly trying to be able to use it. Redshift will become more and more applicable, I think, to more and more companies as we go along. DocumentDB this is also a NoSQL database service that is MongoDB compatible. So MongoDB is a document store database, NoSQL database as well. So this is another option as opposed to Amazon's custom database that they've written. That's DynamoDB. And what is QLDB? A ledger database. Sure. This is for crypto. It looks like so like crypto mining and stuff. I don't know. Again, Amazon has a service for literally everything to be able to get up and running pretty fast. I don't know what that is. I don't think you need to know that to get a job. So skip that one for now. But yeah, so those are some of the things that are available. I would only, again, worry about the top two here that I think are important, especially if you're taking the developer cert. Actually, a lot of the certs will ask a lot of questions about Dynamo, but especially the AWS Certified Developer Associate will ask a lot of DynamoDB questions. So you need to know a lot about DynamoDB. All right. So let's do a couple of things here. Let's actually create a new user since I removed my old user. And what service, let's quiz ourselves. What service do you use to be able to, manage users and permissions? I'll give you 10 seconds to think about it. Perfect. We're going to use IAM, which is Identity and Access Manager or Management. Identity and Access Management. This is how we're going to create users. So let's create a new user really quick. We're going to add a user, and we're going to call this Stream 12 user. And we're only going to give it programmatic access. Yeah, we're gonna give it programmatic access. So that means we're not gonna be able to log into this interface here. We're only gonna be able to access things from the command line. And here we go. We will do this. I don't want you all to be able to do a lot of things, so I am going to let's go ahead and do S3. Let's do read only. I should probably have set up another account so that you guys can mess with my stuff. If I trust everyone on here now, maybe, but we'll be fine. Let's do S3 full access really quick. And maybe I know what I'll do. Okay, we'll do S3 full access. And actually, let's go back and let's also do RDS full access. Actually, we won't need to do RDS full access. We will only do S3 full access. And we'll review, and we'll create this user. And I'll take this. And I remember, I think last time I did it really fast, but you can download the AWS CLI to be able to interact with AWS. So I just said a little bit about APIs, but the cloud, Amazon, is just one giant API. So it's basically just endpoints basically that you can hit. It's internet endpoints that you can hit that that allow you to do certain things. So when I type in something like AWS S3 LS. It's basically hitting an API endpoint. It's trying to say, hey, am I allowed to do this stuff? And it's basically saying no, and it's not showing me that stuff. So let me configure my stuff. So access key, let me see. You guys are gonna look at my my main desktop view for now. And now you can see my main desktop and what my main desktop looks like. One of my main desktops, I have a lot of desktops here. Oh no, that was dumb. Let me move this. You can still see that. You almost caught me. Let me move this off screen and let me put in the secret key. Don't ever let anybody have your access key and secret key. It is not good. Cool. All right. So let me clear this off the screen. And then what can we do? We can then remove this from the screen, close this. All right, let's move it back. Let's change the view. All right, there we go. Now you can't do it. That's true. If everyone took my secret key and access key, I cannot be blamed for my mistakes, but I could probably be charged for it, and that is the problem. Oh no, wait, I messed it up. Let's see here. Okay, we're back. All right, cool. So I created this user and I put my stuff in via the command line. And now if I do an AWS S3 LS, it doesn't give me that error anymore because now I've properly authenticated with Amazon, and now I'm interacting with that API, and I can get the stuff. I do need a secrets window. I found out so many cool things you could do for a stream, and I just need time to implement all of it. Overlay, absolutely. There's some cool stuff. I have a stream deck, so I would easily be able to enable it whenever I needed. But I gotta implement it one day. But let's take a look at. Let's take a look at this ALB wedding one. So let's take a look at the objects. So there's a bunch of things inside of this ALB wedding folder. Let's take a look at all the objects that are inside of it. So I can do the same thing, AWS S3 LS, and then I can just say the name of the bucket. All right, so now you can see here that there are tons and tons of pictures that are in here from when I got married. There's tons. You can see me scrolling. There's so many pictures in here. And the one great thing about S3 is I have access to all these at any given time. So I could download these all, but that might mess up my internet a little bit, even though that would be fine. Actually, yeah, let's just see these memes. Actually, sure, let's do it. I don't know. I have no idea what that funny memes 2 JPEG is, but I'm gonna download it real quick. So at any given time, I can copy it. So again, this is set up kind of like Linux commands, and I can ls to kind of see what's inside. But let's copy that down locally. So copy is a command to copy, and let's go. I have to give it the protocol. So the same way we do HTTP or HTTPS, we can give it the S3://. Yeah, we're definitely gonna risk it all. We're definitely gonna risk it all. ALB wedding slash funny memes 2 JPEG. I really don't know what this is, but yeah, I'm gonna YOLO it. And let's move that slash. Let's move it to pictures. And let's go ahead and open that up. Maybe I can tell what it is from the preview. It's a political meme. I'm not gonna show it. I don't remember what it says, but I saw Trump on there, so I'm not gonna put that up because that is a trigger warning for people. So definitely not gonna risk it all. But let's download something else from here. Be wedding. We're gonna download a wedding pic, and hopefully it's a good wedding pic. Especially because my wife's standing right here. I hope she approves of whatever one gets downloaded. I hope I approve of whatever one gets downloaded too. But cool. And documents. Oh, this was the worst one we could have picked. But there we go. This is a wedding pic. That is my wife. You're famous now. Huh? Come see. This is the worst one we could have picked. But yeah, that was one at random. But again, I use this basically. You saw me use this just like you would use exactly how you would use Dropbox. Really, I was able to easily get my files. You can also get those files the same way out of. You can't see them, I don't think, inside of the console, but you can get those files out that way. Let's see. And these are public because we actually set up a website to be able to access them. But I think you can only get to them from, I don't know. But yeah, you can click in here and download them, so you can use this like Dropbox. And again, it's very cheap and very cool. Cool, so that's S3, and I can also delete stuff, so I'm not gonna delete anything from the bucket now. I could delete that funny meme, but you can also do things like syncing, and so it's actually very fast to download and upload from S3, or to download at least. Your upload speeds determine whether or not you can upload fast. So things like backups and things like that, this is a great tool to use to be able to just move these giant files around, especially if you're trying to move them around to different Amazon resources. It's very, very fast if you're trying to use it for that. Cool. Let's see. What else are we gonna go with? Let's hop into, let's connect to that RDS instance that we installed. And maybe actually, do we have an EC? Let's spin up an EC2 instance too real quick to show you the difference there. Did I delete the delete me? Let's just do this. Select, review and launch, details. Let me go back to security group, add rule. Where's MySQL? I don't see, oh, there it goes. MySQL Aurora. Let's set that up. Review and launch. Launch. I think I have this one. All right, just something we connect to later. But let's go ahead and see if we can get connected to this RDS instance. No, we've been married longer than a year and a half. We've been married for 2.5 years. But we've been together for like 10 years. So we met at the very beginning of college, and we've been, well, not the very beginning, but early on in college, and we've been together ever since. We waited a long time because we were trying to get our lives together, trying to be adults, do the whole adult thing, and worrying about careers and things like that. But yeah, we've been married for 2.5 years now. I hope that's right. I believe that that's right. Can you confirm if that's right? Yeah, I got confirmation that I'm correct. 2.5 years. I got to tiptoe around here, make sure it's okay. Yeah, they were just date stamped that. I think that's when we tried to set up the site for everyone to see, like all the people from all the guests and stuff. We were trying to set up a site so they could just access all the pics, because there's our photographer gave us so many pics. Yeah. All right. So we may have to do so again. We talked about Amazon being very secured by default, so we may actually not have access to this immediately, but we'll check. Outbound, it looks like. Here, inbound, it looks like this is here. So we may have to add something to this security group, but we'll go ahead and try this now. It dynamically generated the password, but I don't think I grabbed it. Let's see here. That might be a problem, because I do need the password. Admin's here. I'm gonna have to delete this and submit another one. Did I grab it? I didn't think I saved it anywhere. I do not know the password. That sucks. Can I'm gonna see if I have any options here. I don't even know if I'm gonna have any options here. New master password. Oh, that's nice. I am going to. Oh, excellent. This is even better. That's not going to show you this. So I won't even make it that long, because. All right, there we go. Very simple. How do I save this? Okay. What about that one? And I don't have. Wait a minute. Oh. All right. I'm gonna forget this password, guaranteed. All right. Excuse me. Cool. Now I've got a new master password. I think. I think I clicked that next. Let's see how I can connect to it. Let's also modify this, because I need to set up the security group to allow me to be able to get into it. And so basically I need to give my IP address access. So if you want to do, if you want to be able to only, lock this down to certain IP addresses, you do have that option. So maybe if I can run ifconfig, or I can go to you just Google, what is my IP address? And I can grab this right here. And now, even if I did give you all the password, you wouldn't be able to log in, and only I would be able to log in. Actually, go inbound, edit. Oh, never mind. Oh, no, I do need to add a rule. Add a rule only for MySQL. So it's only for this port that my IP address works for. And you have to give it, maybe we'll talk about CIDR block ranges. That /32 is a way of denoting a single IP address. It's very confusing, but we'll talk about that later. You do need to add the /32 at the end for a single thing. But cool, now I will try to access this RDS instance. What happened? 20 messages were deleted by a moderator. Oh, sorry about that. I don't, what did it get you for? Get you for spamming? What? Stop spamming symbols warning? That's weak. That's super weak. I will modify that, especially for a stream like this. I'm sorry about that. It deleted all your messages. I'm sorry about that. I'll modify Nightbot. I'll try to modify Nightbot. Okay, cool. All right. So let me grab the database endpoint that I need here. Let's see where it is. Cool. So it gives you this endpoint here. And what does this look like to you? Let's paste it so you can look at it. It looks like a URL, right? It looks, it's a bunch of stuff, but it's, rds.amazonaws.com. So it's a web address. This is a DNS address. So this is, we learned about how DNS works, but it just gives you an endpoint, and we can use MySQL to connect to that. So first, let me see if I have MySQL client installed locally. So, okay, I don't. Let's go with, let's install this MySQL client really quick. And this will just give me the tools that I need to be able to connect to a MySQL server remotely. Hopefully this is quick and doesn't drop too many frames. All right, cool. So now if I type in MySQL, it lets me know that it can't connect. So the way you connect to MySQL is very similar to SSH, and I can go MySQL-H and paste in the host. Oh man, that's not what I want. I want the endpoint. So whenever you're trying to connect to MySQL, even if it's locally to you, this is usually the paradigm for it. You do username, and my username will be admin. You would do -p for password, and this will log you into your MySQL instance. You could type the password here on the command line if you want, but you shouldn't do that. If you hit enter, it will ask you for the password, but I don't have anything running locally here, so it won't connect. If you want to connect remotely, you need to give it a host, and I'll give it that host. And I don't remember. I knew I wasn't gonna remember. All right, and so it did not like this host. Did I paste that in wrong? I know my SQL Server host. That's weird. I need to use a different. That's the endpoint. What else? Inbound. I'm here, 3306. Even if my password was wrong, it should give me a different error. I might need to actually click the modify. Well, ICP is going to be gone for this, not available for this. So this is very interesting because it's basically saying DNS is not finding anything for this. So, no, you shouldn't have to specify port. MySQL tries to connect over 3306 by default. I did choose auto-generated password, but then I thought I edited it, but I need to, maybe it didn't modify. I reset it. Let's see. Let's set it again. Set it. Let's continue. Oh, apply media. That's what I didn't do. It'll probably need to restart it, maybe. But let's check this out. But it shouldn't give me a. It shouldn't give me this. This is different. This is not a bad password. Oh, is this error 22 or is this really trying to? Do you have to give it a port? Maybe so. Was it 33? Is that how you do it? That's still a bad error. This is. Huh. Yeah, it's definitely an IP thing. Definitely a DNS thing. But why can't I resolve Amazon? Can I not resolve Amazon AWS.com? No, I definitely can. Why? Did it change? Did I copy something incorrectly? You didn't type the name wrong. Use the IP pasted above. Where? I don't know if they give you. I don't know if they give you an IP for this. Oh, above here, like. Let me paste again. It looks the same. Yeah, it's really weird. Capital P for port. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that is that 172 address. That looks. I don't know. It doesn't. Okay, let me try that. Where are you even? Where'd you get that from? But that's fine. I'll type it anywhere. Where'd you see that at? 28.69. Oh, you got. Oh, you okay? You got it. You got it from. Oh, I didn't see your post above. Okay. All right. Did I mess with my resolver conf or something? What in the world? No. Let me just delete this. And did I modify anything here? Let me oh, darn it. Whoops. Whoa. Let's get out of here. Let's do sudo. Let's see if that works. All right. Okay. So what? Basically, what I just did is I basically changed the server from that I was using to resolve my DNS. 8.8.8.8 is a common one. It's Google's, I believe. Or is it? It's Google's or Yahoo? No, it's Google's. DNS servers that you can use, and you can use it to resolve your DNS. And then I may be able to just do this now and see what happens. I remember I told you last time, do not mess with your resolve.conf. You should not mess with your resolve.conf unless you were, unless exactly what I was just doing was just happening. So the first thing is that usually when this happens here, usually when it just hangs for MySQL, and so these are good little sysadmin tidbits and things that you kind of pick up over time. Usually, if it just hangs like this and it doesn't give you an error, it means that there is a networking issue that's keeping you from connecting. For Amazon, this usually means a security group problem. So let's go ahead and check our security group again and make sure. Whoops, I don't know why I typed that in. And just compare what my IP is, what I said my IP was, versus what I put in the security group for an inbound rule. That looks right. 251.62. Did I not specify port here? But it hung. So let's see what else. Oh, I mean, yeah, you'll be all right. You can't. I'll be fine. Go ahead. Do your best. Let's just say I have some mitigations in place, and I will sue you. I'll sue you. Don't worry. I'll find out who you are, and I'll come find you. But I do have some mitigations in place. I thought about a lot of this stuff before I started my stream. The only thing I did not work out was how to do secure tabs. Cool. So if it's not that, all right, hanging. Maybe is it back up after the modification? Okay, maybe it never went down. Oh, I thought I would be able to connect, no problem. I wonder. Let me check something though. I wonder if because I'm using this VM. Let's change this to all real quick just to test. Inbound, edit. Just to test really quick. All right, so we have, it's still an issue here. Very interesting, very, very interesting. Hello. No, it isn't. It isn't bridge networking. It's not bridge networking, but this should still be fun. I want to see something really quick. Whoops. Oh man, Linux doesn't come with all the cool stuff that it used to come with by default. It used to come with all these cool tools by default, and now it doesn't, which is annoying. Okay, this is just a networking problem. Even though I can resolve this, I can't reach out. So this is a problem here. Yes, I think you have to set your RDS as public to be accessible from the internet. I think I should be able to set the security group to do that. I'm pretty sure I've done this a lot of times. Configuration. Did I pull the cluster instance? No, that's right. Public accessibility. Oh yeah, okay, you're right. I'm tripping again. So yes, let me see where to do that at. I usually I'm used to setting this up through I set this up through code. I actually don't click around the admin panel. Let me see if I can do that real quick. Where subnet? Where is? Let's see. Okay, cool. Is this? Oh, outside the VPC hosting. Yes. Okay. So I'm actually 99% sure this is a change that was made. This is a change that was made when they moved RDS. So they moved RDS instances. Like now they get created. They like even when you set them up, even as a single one, they get set up underneath a cluster still to make clustering easier. And I do think that this was a new addition. I do think this was a new addition to have to manually publicly make it available. But we did it. Let's see if that works now. Thank you guys for the heads up for that one. Let's see. It might take a little while for it to it still says no? Did I just that's because it's still I think it's still modifying now. Let's see. Yeah, it's still modifying. We'll let it modify. Hopefully it finishes in the next couple minutes. If not, we won't really worry about it. We're just kind of messing around inside of AWS right now. And I'll probably just keep messing around for a little while longer. But again, hopefully you now understand a little bit about how we originally started talking about cloud computing and talk about this distributed computing model where you could rent basically different resources from different places. And we talk about those resources, being CPU, storage, RAM, etc. But The last class we talked about compute, we talked about EC2, so you know where you can get your processing power from, and your RAM from. Tonight we talked about storage. Oh, we also talked about IAM last time, so identity and access management, where you can go to set up all of your permissions, take care of your users and groups, and apply your explicit permissions to your account and access to AWS services. And today we talked about storage. So now you know that you have all these storage options available to you that do different things. We talked about S3 being object storage, and we talked about the different storage classes that can save you money, and that's not really good for setting up operating systems on. You can't really do that, and it's not good for attaching it at a file system, because you can't attach it at a file system by default. We talked about EBS, which backs EC2, which is how it's your non-ephemeral storage for EC2 instances. We talked about how great that is and how flexible it is. You can grow it, you can shrink it, you can move it, you can unattach it from an instance, you can attach multiple EBS volumes to the same instance. So that's pretty cool. We talk about snapshotting features of that, and again, you only pay for what you use, just like most cloud services. And then we showed you some database options. Most applications need some type of database, whether it be relational database or a NoSQL database. There are other types of databases. Those are the ones that we focused on tonight. We talked about, we're in RDS now. We talked about RDS being the relational database service for Amazon. This is their fully managed service. This is something that you could do inside of EC2 if you wanted, and use EBS to back that data. But this is a great service, so that you don't have to worry about a lot of those things. And we also talked about DynamoDB, which is Amazon's NoSQL table that they would like you to use, that is pretty fast. Again, remember the differences between relational databases is that relational databases are they're pretty difficult to scale for a number of reasons. And I think that the article that you can get if you paste in the exclamation point databases or database command will give you some good information about why one is better than the other for certain use cases. And you can go ahead and read through that. Make sure you do your best to kind of understand, the difference between those two things and what scenarios each one is good in. Because people will pay you a lot of money to know that difference, to know which scenarios one is better than the other, especially when developing an application. You also want to take to know that that relational databases are a lot better for when you're doing complex queries. So when you need to, get very specific information that is dependent upon a lot of structured data, relational databases are a lot better for that, and NoSQL databases are not. You can think about NoSQL databases as kind of key value stores. They're a lot more loosely defined because they have dynamic schemas. Those are kind of some of the high level things that you might want to take away from this. But again, just your familiarity with just understanding, hey, now I know there are two different main database types. And again, like I said, there are more, but two different main database types. There's relational and NoSQL. Those are the ones that people will talk about most often. Knowing that is a plus. Being able to, express that that those are two different things is great. And just to know that what options you have available to you inside of the cloud to do those things is really, really important. And that's half of what, I would actually say 60% of being a systems administrator or cloud engineer or anyone who has a job dependent upon your knowledge of the cloud is basically 60% of it is knowing what services you have available to you. Like I said, I know there are a lot here, but knowing that you have all these tools available to you is more than half the battle. And as you get through and understanding how to configure one or two of them, you'll really get a handle on how Amazon or how Azure or how Google goes about their thought process of modifying these things and setting these things up. And it makes it easy to move in between services. And then I would say the other 40% of that is really based off of your experience with doing and setting up things. So a lot of the knowledge that I have is like super random super random knowledge from doing things over and over again. That's how I knew, when MySQL just hangs after entering a password, it's always a networking problem. It's always a networking problem, or most likely, especially with dealing with AWS. These are things you kind of just pick up over time. And so I would say that's what the other 40% is, to be honest. So get in, try some things, install some applications, try to set up some stuff. Like it's all good, and it will help a lot. But if you can just get familiar with what the cloud has to offer, you become instantly very valuable to somebody. But we were able to get logged in here to this database. This is the MySQL command line. I am no longer, it lets you know that I was able to connect. I'm no longer really on my computer. I'm inside of this RDS instance. And what's great is I can still manage my data how I want to manage it. So I can, show databases. I can see what databases are in here, which will be probably none. I can't type. Whoops, that was dumb. And I can see here, actually, there are some databases already in here, and I probably shouldn't do this, but it doesn't really matter. I can use this, and I can show my tables, and I can interact with this database. I can interact with this database however I want. Okay, nothing there, but cool. But you can see here, I'm in MySQL. Again, learning the syntax that I'm using here, the select, from, this is all SQL syntax, and so like I said, the SQL query language, or SQL, not SQL query language, the structured query language that you can learn that. Again, you can honestly learn that in a couple of hours. You can find some YouTube videos. You can learn the language itself in a couple of hours. It does take some time to understand how to use it effectively though, and it's something that I would absolutely recommend you learning, because it is very, very valuable. You will have to deal with databases sometime in your career. But again, this is just to show that we are inside of a managed service that AWS provides. And I can go ahead and use that stuff. And when I'm done with it, I can go ahead and I can just shut it down, which is super duper nice. I don't want to create a file snapshot. Delete me. I acknowledge, delete. Cool, and I can just delete those services just like that. So the same way you've seen me tonight and previously kind of spin up these resources and delete them, is how you can. This is also where the benefit of the cloud comes in. Is again that these you might hear the term, especially for DevOps. We're doing a DevOps bootcamp, and a lot of times you'll hear the difference between kind of an environment where you're doing systems administration and one where you're doing DevOps is that you no longer think about your servers, in systems administration or in legacy organizations. You think about your servers as pets. So, my company might have 20 servers that we take care of, that we make sure aren't sick. If one gets sick, we take care of it, we nurse it back to health, we fix it. The cloud allows a different paradigm of treating them like cattle. So, when you get a sick cow or you get a sick animal, you remove, I know it's a little morbid, but you remove that animal. So, if you get a server that's sick, the cloud allows you to completely remove it and replace it with a fresh, hopefully healthy one, which is very interesting. So, it changes the way that you think about a lot of these things. Now, you wouldn't necessarily want to do that with a database, but you do want to start thinking about that when you're working with your services, that these things, how can you design things to where the service can be removed at any given time, or scaled out or brought back in, which is very interesting. So I know that was a shocking paradigm to me when I first got in the cloud. I was like, like one day somebody was just like, hey, I saw a server that was down, like one of my very first jobs working in the cloud. I was like, hey, the server is throwing all kinds of errors. I don't know how to resolve it. And they were like, delete it. And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean delete it? And they were like, right click and terminate it. And I was like, my life history has told me that I'm not allowed to do this, and I feel uncomfortable doing this. So I would prefer that one of you did it for me to make me feel better about it. And they absolutely went in and right clicked, terminated it. Because of the way things were set up, they were using CloudFormation. A new server spun back up in its place, and we had a whole host of healthy servers again. It was very interesting. It was very eye-opening to me to kind of see, the kind of power that you have at your fingertips with the cloud. Is pretty cool. It is really cool. So yeah, that's all we have for tonight. Let me hop back in the chat. Let me see if there's any questions that I missed. Also, if I ever miss any questions, feel free to tweet me or throw it in the Slack channel. I'll try to get to it and answer it, or hopefully someone else will answer it. But yeah, hold on. I will update the Slack invite link right now. I learned how to update commands from the chat window. So I will do that right now, really quick. Thank you for calling that out. Let me grab a new link. Invite people, share invite link. And I think I can do this. I think I can do what? Exclamation point, commands, add, exclamation point Slack, paste. So that didn't work. Command already exists, so maybe it's update instead of add. Let me see. Actually, I can just do this. Commands delete Slack. Oh, exclamation point. I'm struggling over here, but commands delete exclamation point Slack, and then Slack has been deleted, and add a new one. All right, so now if you do exclamation point Slack, you should get a proper invite link. I'm sorry if I muddied up the chat there. Actually, don't know if did all the other stuff come through. Yeah, sorry if I muddied it up, but now you can do exclamation point Slack, and that one should work. Thank you for calling that out. See, I'm learning here. I didn't know you could update all these chat commands directly from Slack. I think that's the coolest thing. Like when I found that out, I was like, oh man, like this changes everything. I don't have to log in and copy and paste. I can do it straight from here. So cool. Still can't log into the classroom. So have you tried, since the stream started, everyone so far has been able to get in? Did you get, Sam, did you actually get the code? Because if you just need the code, just reach out to me. I can give you the code. But if you're trying the code and you couldn't get in earlier, there was a domain issue that I did resolve, and people seem to be able to get in now. So let me know if that's still a problem for sure. But Terraform and Packer for that sweet immutable infrastructure combo, absolutely. I'm a big proponent of immutable infrastructure. Not proponent. I'm a big believer in immutable infrastructure. I love immutable infrastructure. I think when you can design an architecture system around immutable infrastructure, it is amazing. Especially if you come from a sysadmin background and you've ever had to manage servers and monitor lots of servers. Immutable infrastructure is the best, and we'll get into what that is later. Oh, so cool. Great question. So we'll get into it right now. What is immutable architecture? This just means, that you do not modify. It means you do not modify that architecture. So you deploy it in the state that it's in, and you don't change it in place. Like you don't go in and add packages. You don't install anything. You destroy it. And you make modifications in your build process or however you're deploying that infrastructure, and you make the changes there. But basically, this infrastructure is throwaway infrastructure that again only is deployed a single time. You don't make changes to it at all, which is really nice. Yeah, it means it's not changeable. You cannot modify it, is what immutability means. It means you can't modify it. Yeah, if something breaks, you just make it. If you need to make updates to something, you, instead of updating it, you tear down the old one and you spin up new ones. Or opposite, you spin up new ones, move all the traffic over, and then tear down the old ones. But it's very interesting. Like, again, like the project that I work on now, it's all immutable. You know, if we need to make a change, we make that change in code. So we actually, all the things we did to spin up this stuff manually, you can codify. You can write out code to be able to do exactly what we just did, and that's how you can manage it easily. And if I need to make changes, so instead, like, I didn't set the publicly available stuff, I would go back, instead of doing what I just did, I would destroy that one. I would go back to my code, I would modify the thing that made it publicly available, I would write the little piece of code or the configuration that made it publicly available, and I'd redeploy that code, and that would be out there, and I would never change it. This is great for consistency's sake. There's something called configuration drift, and this is when you have servers sitting around and people are making changes to them, and they kind of get out of the state of how they were originally set up, and there's no documentation for what that server is supposed to be like, and that can cause a lot of problems. Immutability, helps with that. You always know what you're supposed to have, and it makes it easy to deploy new things based off of it. Yeah, you shoot the cow, 100%. A better option than having more money. Yeah, 100%. Have you only done DevOps in your career? Have you only done DevOps? No, not at all. So I'm making the career switch into the tech industry. Oh, so I mean, I have been in the tech industry my entire career. I mean, I guess my very first job, I was basically like a super janitor. But after that, my entire career has been in tech. For someone who is switching into the tech industry, I actually think now is a better time than any time switching to the tech industry, because it's so starved for talent. So as someone making a career switch, actually the only YouTube video I have up right now is specifically about making a career switch into the tech industry. But some advice for that would be, one, to do exactly what you're doing now, and to just immerse yourself in it. Start picking up the terminology and things like that. That's the first best way. Being able to have conversations about technology is kind of the best way to be able to switch careers fast. And then other than that, find people who are doing this so that you can talk to them and ask questions. You got to be comfortable with hopping in, playing around. And the faster you realize that nobody knows all of it, there's all the information will get thrown at you, but nobody knows all of it at all. And even people who are great, only know a portion of the information. And being okay with that, and understanding that to be in tech, you're gonna have to be a constant learner, especially for DevOps. But don't aim to get straight into DevOps. I would aim to get somewhere else first. I would aim to get into maybe systems administration or development, specifically something a little more structured. QA, software testing is a good path to take. Even UX UI is a great path to take, to kind of just become adjacent to DevOps, and to be doing things that kind of contribute to it, because DevOps includes so much. You kind of have to understand the whole software development lifecycle. I would get in where you fit in, to be 100% honest. Get in where you fit in, and you can move towards it. Unfortunately, I think I said it in the very first stream, that there's kind of, for DevOps, there's kind of no JV, which is very interesting. It's something that we talked about at a DevOps Days conference. Is it's really tough to how do you make an entry level DevOps engineer, and it's really, you got to get in somewhere DevOps adjacent again, and kind of move into it. Google Classroom info, did you miss it? It did go out today. It went out this afternoon. So you should have that in your email. If not, I saw you sent me a message, Terry. I can send you the code for that. The lab stuff, no. I still plan on doing the lab stream this week, hopefully Thursday or Friday, and that will go up immediately to watch on YouTube, but it'll also be here as well. So the lab stuff is not out yet. The lab stuff is out in the Google Classroom once I hit once I hit publish on all those things. But if you're in Google Classroom, it will be there. So you will have the lab stuff immediately if you are in Google Classroom. I'm just tuning in. Where should I start learning from you? So if you want to start learning, I uploaded the first couple of videos to YouTube. I think the first 4 are on YouTube now. I actually had I tried to let the other ones upload overnight, and it ran into some errors. So I'm probably going to move those, take those to work as well, and try to upload those because it worked fine for my job. So all of the, I guess the 10. This is stream number 12, but it's only the 11th stream because we skipped one. All of them will be on YouTube as fast as I can get them on YouTube. But I think the first 3 to 4 are on YouTube right now. Do you have a website or a YouTube playlist? I do. There's a website. I think someone posted it already. But the YouTube playlist, I probably should put them on the playlist as well. Looks like you guys already answered all this stuff. Do you have any tips for learning scripting? I feel like what I'm struggling with. Yes. So first, scripting is easier the more I would do 2 things. One, I'm assuming you're talking about bash scripting. If you're talking about bash scripting, I would learn as many Linux commands. I will get very comfortable with navigating the Linux command line. I will get very comfortable with just using the Linux command line, because the more and more tools you have at your disposal there will make you a better scripter. Even if you're talking about another scripting language, I would learn the basics of software development first, the very basics. So just, again, if you know variables, if you know conditionals, like if statements, if else's, and ways to be able to do some logic, some comparison operators like, less than, greater than, and loops. I think once you have those 4 things down, you can do most scripting things. Like you can get through a lot of it. So I think once you kind of pick up some of those basic programming concepts, I think it makes it a lot easier to start scripting. But yeah, just practice. It is hard to think of things to automate. It takes a while, and the better you get, the easier it'll be to think of things that you can automate. How about cloud as a first step into DevOps? Absolutely, 1000%. I think if you're trying to get into DevOps, like learning the cloud, I think is your fastest. I think it is absolutely your best way. And you can learn the cloud, and someone will hire you just for that cloud knowledge, even if you never implemented anything. But again, learning the cloud can be a big undertaking when you don't have a lot of the other knowledge behind it to implement things. It can be hard to implement things, but I think it's very easy to learn the cloud for what it is and what you can do with it. I think it's very easy. I know solutions architects who've never implemented anything and just know a lot about what's offered, and they get paid a lot to know what you can do with Amazon. To know what you can do with it, and work on teams where they talk to engineers about that, and they make a lot of money doing that. So absolutely, I think cloud is a great first step. Currently, React Redux dev. Want to move towards DevOps position so bad. Yeah, I mean, I actually think developers have it. People coming from a development background, I think, actually have it easier than people coming from an ops background in terms of DevOps, because of the way the tooling has been built. I think it's a lot easier for devs to pick up a lot of the cool things. I'd hop into Docker, get comfortable with containers. That'll probably feel pretty good for you coming from React Redux. Probably pretty simple. Hop into some configuration management or some infrastructure as code, and I think you'll be fine. I'm not technical. I don't even know how to join a Slack group. I know Reddit groups. I can do them. Hey, yeah. I mean, you don't need to be technical at all. Honestly, I actually think I passed a couple of people this stream along because they are on the business side of things, and you'd be surprised at how far you can make it, even if you never want to be hands-on technical, how far you can make it, even from a business side, with understanding these concepts. You don't need to know, you don't need to be hands-on with them, but understanding these concepts and how to implement this type of change is very valuable. Let's see. Slack similar to Reddit groups. I actually am not that familiar with Reddit groups. Slack is a collaboration tool. A lot of companies use it. It is like it's like, I don't know if you've ever used Microsoft Teams or like or Discord. If you ever use Discord, it's kind of like Discord as well. Yeah, but there are no two DevOps jobs that are the same. Yeah, like DevOps jobs vary widely. That's why I always tell people, you only need to know some of the information, because everyone says they need a DevOps engineer, but they all need completely different things. So if you just can pick up, one of these chunks of all the units that we're going over, if you can just grasp, one or two of them, someone can use those. Someone needs that. Someone needs those things that and you get a job. So don't be discouraged too if you go to interview and you don't know anything they're talking about, because again, some people need a unicorn, and some people just need someone who knows the cloud, and some people actually need a developer. They don't need a DevOps engineer. They just really need a developer who can just kind of who knows what a server is and can push something to one server. So you'd be surprised about how different the jobs are. DevOps again it's although it's very clearly defined, in actuality, it's very loosely defined in reality. The world doesn't see it that way, and have kind of ham-fisted every job that uses the cloud or does anything with infrastructure to be DevOps. But hey, that's fine with me, especially if the salaries remain high. Completely fine with me. Let's see. The Windows Azure world, how much you have to learn after years. Yep. Sysadmin experience, started my journey a year ago. 100%. That's been one of the, I'm fortunate in my age and when I kind of got into everything, and that the world was different. The world was different even just 10 years ago, and it was real easy to get to work on something and get good at it and be valuable, and then get stuck, and then everything changed from underneath you. And a lot of systems administrators are having that challenge now of picking up the new way of doing things, because it is very different from the old world, for sure. Currently in a bootcamp, maybe web app utilizing MySQL. That's awesome. DB and deploying EC2 instance. I'm really just liking front end. Yeah, yes. We are the same then. I do not like front end. I don't like front end. I like the database back end side of things for sure. I've actually, I'm considering, at some time I might go and be a pure back-end developer for a few years. I might try that out, just to kind of really get my development has come along. My software development skills have come a long way over just the past 3 years or so. But I really want to take that up to the next level. I think that would make me a better DevOps engineer. But I do tend to gravitate towards the DB and back-end side of things as well. I've got some script stuff in here. Biggest script, that's something. I like these ideas. Yeah, I've touched some Docker. It's dope. Really liking the AWS stuff a lot right now. Man, Docker is my favorite thing to teach. Because Docker is the Docker paradigm, the container paradigm changed. It changed everything. For me at least. And I think Docker is very fun. And I think Docker is one of those things where even if you're coming from a systems administration background, it's one of those things that makes you feel like you're now doing real DevOps stuff. Yeah, it's a cool tool for sure. I'm working the role. Looking to pass the solutions architect. Otherwise, already work with clients. Yeah. I mean, once you have a solutions architect, even associate, people come searching for you. And again, if you can just get comfortable with talking about what you know, that's the major key. I'm telling you, everyone thinks there are tons of people out here who know all this stuff. There really aren't. And because of that, a lot of people might apply for the job that you're applying for, but again, half of them are going to be too expensive. Half of them are going to be just like you. Well, not half. A couple of them are going to be just like you, just like looking for an opportunity, who've learned a lot and are looking for a place to kind of give them a shot. And then you're going to have some people who don't know anything, who are just out here. They're just trying it. They're doing their best. And so like the interview process is very interesting. And I always tell people, you never know what you're going up against. Usually it's not nearly as intimidating as you think it is. I can wear them out of the cloud. I will tackle. Yeah. Cloud migrations is a big thing. You can make a lot of money just working for companies who do cloud migrations and pulling people from bare metal into the cloud. So cloud migrations are great. Oh, Eeps, congratulations on the AWS Solutions Architect Associate. You said you're not getting so much attention now. How can I get the word out? So one, did you put it on I don't know if you're on LinkedIn, but you should get on LinkedIn and you should attach it as a certification on your LinkedIn, for one, and people will reach out to you that way. Two, I would put it at the very top of my resume. I'll put it at the very top because there are companies that need that for, to achieve certain levels of AWS partnership status. And so you might want to even do that, especially when you're searching for jobs, is to just Google Solutions Architect, search something like that, because things will come up where people need you to have one or really want you to have one. But yeah, also maybe in the Slack we should start a LinkedIn channel just to go help endorse each other on different topics, because that helps as well. But yeah, you can share your LinkedIn here. I encourage you to join the Slack if you're not already in the Slack, to post it there as well. But yeah, we can click it. We can go endorse some stuff. Let people know what you want to endorse. I just sent you a connection as well, but yeah, we should absolutely do that. And the more people the more stuff you have on, you'll start getting bites. People will find you for sure. But cool, I really like all the questions. All the questions were great. I kind of like this. I kind of like ending the stream this way, with just kind of running through, talking about stuff, having conversation. That's pretty cool. But again, thanks for sticking around. A lot of people stuck around for this. But it's 10:30. I gotta go get some food for one. Wake up early to work out. I told everyone a few weeks ago I'm trying to hit some weight goals. I'm coming up on the big 3-0 next year. I'm turning 30 next year, so I really want to hit my weight goals before then. So I'm on a pretty strict workout plan right now. I gotta get my diet right though. My diet is a little weak. It's a little hard when you work right next to a bunch of restaurants. But yeah, working on that now. So, but cool. Everyone have a great night. Thanks for, again, all the conversation. I always have fun doing these things. So, hop onto the Slack. Anyone who wasn't able to get in the Google Classroom, try the code again. If you're not able to reach out to me again. A lot of people were able to get on so far. I can see people have been joining. I can see the numbers going up in there. And I'll see you all on Monday. Oh, well, I'll probably see you tomorrow or Friday for the impromptu stream to go over the lab that we missed. But I'll run through that just so it's available for people to watch at their own leisure. Don't stress about trying to, hop on at the right time. But I'll get that up. And then I'll see you back on Monday for more AWS stuff. Have a wonderful weekend. Have a good night.